Welcome to the Transform Your Relationship podcast, where we'll go beyond the typical relationship advice. I'm your host, Manisha Terry, somatic healing practitioner and mentor. Each week, I'll share personal insights, client success stories, and how my holistic trauma-informed approach can help you transform your relationship from the inside out. You'll learn ways to recognize and prioritize your needs, get to the root of what's upsetting you, and courageously ask for what you want so you can confidently co-create the relationship you desire. You'll also hear from guest experts who will be invited to share their unique approaches to transformation, and at the end of each episode, you'll receive one tangible practice you can implement right away to transform your relationship. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Transform Your Relationship podcast. I'm your host, Manisha Terry, and I am joined today by my lovely, lovely guest, Analena Fuchs. She is a human design and gene keys guide for conscious leaders. And I'm just going to have her introduce herself and tell us what she does and who she works with. Hello and welcome, Analena. How are you today?
I am good. Thank you so much for having me, Manisha. It's such an honor to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you...
a little bit about what I do? Or?
Yes. Tell us. Actually, before you do that, I'll just take a moment and just say, I like to kind of share with listeners why I invited a particular guest on. And so I met Analena a couple of years ago. I don't know. Time is interesting these days. It was a couple of years ago. And I did a reading with her. And, as everyone probably knows by now, I am obsessed with all different kinds of systems and tools to help us understand ourselves. And human design was relatively new to me. And I just really appreciated, one, I'm like sort of an astrology nerd. So I appreciated the mix of astrology in there. But I also felt like it really gave me some insights about myself in terms of how I make decisions and like what I need and the space that I need to do that. And as somebody who's, highly sensitive and empathic and can feel so much, that was such a great thing to understand about myself, because I felt like, in relationship, if I'm able to give myself a little bit of space and time to make decisions and talk to people, like, wow, that could really transform them. And so I think human design has so much to offer about, in terms of learning about ourselves. And so I've watched you since we did that reading to now starting a school for human design and a certification, and just the beautiful way that you share the different concepts within it. And so I just really wanted to have you on to talk about like your take on it and how it supports people's relationships and what they can learn about themselves. And so just thank you for being here. So
yeah, no, I like to hear that, actually. Very because sometimes you make me realize the impact that I'm making, basically, and how much I have done personally. So that's what gives me goosebumps. So thank you for sharing that with everybody. Yeah. So human design, like you say, it's this tool to help us understand ourselves better. And just like you, I'm also highly sensitive, empathic, introvert, all the things. And I used to think there's something wrong with that. Like I'm not, like extrovert enough, or sometimes confident enough, or why am I so shy, or why do I need so much alone time? When I learned about my human design, when I explain it to people, it's like I could finally relax into my body. Like, this feeling where it's like, because I think we are putting so much energy into trying to be who we're not. And when we realize that that's a freaking waste of time, and all the things, like it's like this, you go to the movies, like here's a ticket to be you. Yay, finally. Always waited for that day. And we're always on this quest, right? We're on this quest of loving ourselves more, accepting ourselves more, being truly happy. Often we think it's money we're after, but that's really not. Once we have the money, we realize it's not that, right? But we're always looking for something. And I was on that quest myself, and being a coach in the self-development, journey. When human design came my way, it was this moment where it clicked, and I'm like, kind of like I have arrived.
Mm.
I was even so mind blowing that I couldn't even comprehend that something like this exists.
Mm-hmm.
So freaking accurate to describe me just from my date of birth. I
Yeah,
was
it's wild.
blown away. I'm like, this cannot be true. And then, I mean, I started to give readings. I was still kind of skeptical. And then every reading,
Mm.
life changing, life changing. I was like, wow. And I
Mm.
have given so many readings now. I'm like, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll just share as well. I don't know if I've actually shared this with you, but in that reading, I was asking about a podcast and would that be like a good form
Yes.
for me? And you were so sweet because you're like, well, I don't want to tell you what to do, but kind of like, yes, basically. So, so here we are. I have a podcast and you're on it. So it's pretty
Yeah.
awesome. It's full circle.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing. You can literally look at somebody's chart and kind of, if somebody's meant to be speaking their voice or use their voice for marketing and getting their message out there in the world. Because for other people, it's more writing and
Mm-hmm.
forms, but for you, it's definitely
Mm-hmm.
speaking, being on a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said when you learned about your human design, it was like a massive permission slip. And even when you said the word exhale, like I could feel it in your body. I could feel you relaxing even as you were saying it. And I don't know if I know this, but what was like sort of your first experience with it? Like what kind of drew you to it to even do it? And then it sounds like you were so into it, it organically took you deeper. But yeah,
Yeah.
that initial inspiration.
Yeah, it came through like a friend of mine. She learned about it in a coaching program, and then she asked me if I knew or no, and I pulled my chart, and I knew right away there's something different here.
Mm,
What I liked the most is that I didn't have any questions to answer. These other personality tests, because I tell you, I do them again, I have a different answer
yeah.
because on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling today? I was like, well,
Mm,
yeah, probably different tomorrow. Or
mhm.
what would you do in this situation? Here was like, okay, I only had to enter the time I was born. And then, so first I learned very quickly. So I move fast. We're both, right, manifesting
Mhm,
generators. We get to move quickly. Sometimes
mhm,
we can move too quickly. But in that particular, I just knew that this is me and I'm meant to actually be taking this into the world very quickly. And in the beginning, of course, we have this judgment, like, who am I to take this now out into the world? I'm a newbie, right, myself.
mhm,
But I really took my own programs about human design. I studied it. I took certifications. I got all the books that are out there. And it came so easy to me, which is almost like
mhm.
I sometimes feel like I want to apologize for it, but there's nothing to apologize for, right?
Mhm,
Recovering
mhm.
pleaser.
Yeah,
Funny.
that's right. Recovering people. Yep, same. I'm in the
So,
same club with you.
but really, I have to be honest that it's almost like when I learned about human design, I just remembered it. It was like written in,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
And of course, now I'm way better than I was a year ago. Like I have now, like I look at a person's chart and I can tell you in 5 minutes, and they're like, wow, you just said something about me that took me a lifetime to figure out. And it's so
yeah.
like on point and helpful really for people.
Mhm,
So I very quickly, once I started to learn about myself, like it was kind of like one step ahead, and I started to share with my clients. I shared
mhm,
my excitement on social media, and of course, people like they really like messaged me. I want to know what this is. Like, what are you up to now? And because I guess I could feel my excitement for it and my spark.
mhm,
And yeah, then it just went very quickly. I started to give readings, and my business really shifted a lot since then. So I started to
mhm,
do it with my own clients, and especially first in the one-on-one work, right? And I really noticed that I could take my clients into such a bigger transformation,
mhm,
and
mhm.
especially lasting transformation, because I could touch upon points and find shortcuts on their own healing journey and reaching their own goals that, yeah, just that tool of human design brought to me.
Mhm. Yeah, I find some of these systems so magical. I feel that way about astrology too. And it's sometimes you just get this insight from, a stranger, really, who's looking at this piece of paper. And it really is so transformative because it's something that you inherently have like known about yourself. 'Cause
Mm,
it feels right? Like as soon as somebody says it, just lands in a way, and it gives you that permission to own it and to be it.
That's a really good point. That's exactly, these and the best human design reading or compliment somebody can give me at the end is that the person is telling me like, yeah, I already knew all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then I'm like, yeah, okay, but why are you not doing it? Why are you not fully expressing that part of you? Right? Because we know it deep inside, but human
Mm-hmm.
design is almost like a mirror where you're like, okay, I can actually trust myself.
Yes. Yeah. So kind of on that note, well, actually a couple of things. One, I'm sure if people are listening to this, they're like, well, that maybe it's new to them, maybe it's not, but what is your suggestion for them to, where to get a chart and just kind of the beginner stuff so that they can
Yeah,
at least be looking at their own chart, maybe as they're listening to this or
yeah,
at it.
yeah. That's a great question. So first, like if you right now, if you feel called to, right, trust your body. If you feel called to, this is like something I want to look into, do it. If not, if you're like, it doesn't talk to you, let it be. Maybe it's going to be later on that you feel called to dive into it. And maybe never, and that's okay too, right? But if you feel called to, there's a website called geneticmatrix.com, which is one of the best. There's also my body graph, but genetic matrix is the most accurate, also with the time zones and stuff. So you go there and it's for free. You can just enter your date of birth. You want to make sure you have also the time that you were born as
Mhm.
accurate as possible and the place you were born. And then it spits out this thing called a body graph, which probably is going to look like Chinese first because
Mhm.
like like shapes and forms and colors and numbers and symbols, and you may be very confused. Then what you want to look first is what type you are. So there's 5 different types. You're either going to be a generator, a manifesting generator, projector, reflector, or manifester. And there's tons of information out there my Instagram, for example, is one resource.
Mhm.
There's
Yes.
also books you can get. I would recommend, if you go to Amazon, there's lots of books if you just type in human design and see which one you resonate with personally, if you feel drawn to, because they can give you a nice basic overview.
Mhm.
But you want to learn about your type first. And there's something then called strategy and authority, which is like how you make decisions. And this is really helping you just, again, trusting yourself, because you will know all of this, but it's kind of this confirmation or permission slip to really do it the way that you are intuitively know how to make decisions for yourself. Like in your case, Manisha, you have something that we call emotional authority. So for you,
Mhm.
if it comes to making big decisions, you never want to make a big decision in the moment when you feel emotionally high or low. You want to make sure you ride out that wave and get
Mhm.
a calm, neutral space, which can
Mhm.
take a week sometimes, and that's okay,
Mhm.
right? So um, that's very, very helpful for people. But that's really what I would look at first. And then one way to dive a little bit deeper into human design that's quite beautiful is to do a reading. There are lots of people that
Mhm.
do readings. I still do it, but at this point, more the advanced ones.
Mhm.
Um, but that is definitely a great way if you want to go more into your chart and have somebody that's really well versed with human design to kind of explain all the things that are in your chart, your type, your strategy, your
Mhm.
authority. There's also something called your profile, which is also very, very amazing to understand how you operate in the world,
Mhm.
how you show up, what is normal for you, and all the things. So that's a beautiful way. And then there's also just like people like me, right? We offer also little courses for some of the types. So we have this Aligned Living Academy. We even have a human design certification now.
Mhm.
Some people want to take it very deep and want
Mhm.
to, if you are also an entrepreneur like us, right? We are like coaches. If that's you as well, and you feel like human design is so amazing for yourself and you want to take it to your clients as well, that would be a beautiful thing. But um, you will know. So I
Mhm.
basically trust your body where it's pulling you. And oftentimes it's that gut feeling that you have if you're a generator or manifesting generator, where you just know who the person is you want to learn from, or who's that book that
Mhm.
one thing that I think is very important to say is that take some time, and because human design can be very overwhelming, there's so much information out there. Don't get caught up in all the details, because there are the 64 gates and the 6 profile lines and the planets, and they all have a meaning, and they can really get us so much into the head. And the biggest wisdom that human design actually brings us is that the head is not here to make decisions. It all happens in the body. And when we dive into too much of the information, we're actually so stuck in the head, and we're trying to overthink it and figure it out. And what does this number and this gate mean? And what should I be doing or saying? And we're totally like missing the point here.
Mm-hmm.
The more you can go back to the simplicity, the basics of human design, which is like your type, strategy, and authority, and then eventually your profile, that's really where the big like transformation really happens. And so you focus on less, but go deep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really helpful, because I do recall when I first started reading it's infinite, right? Like with any of these types of systems, you can always go deeper. But I love the advice of really first, even if you're drawn to it, right? And you may not be, right? But if you're drawn to it, look into it and then see what calls you, and then allow yourself to go deeper, because there is the informational level. But if you're not really feeling it, or if there's not a sense in your body, or you're not taking the information from your head into your body, it's not particularly useful, right? It's just more information, and we have a ton of information out there. And so
yeah. And especially on social media, people, and I used to be myself like that, we get caught up following 20 people, and then we get confused because sometimes there's also misinformation out there. People misunderstand it. And then it becomes more frustrating than transformative, right?
For sure. Yeah. So I'm curious, of course, because we talk about relationships here. I'll kind of just open that up. I'm sure your clients, the ones you've done readings for in whatever realm, everyone has relationships, right? Whether they're romantic or like their family relationships or their business relationships. Just wondering if you could share a few examples that maybe come to mind of clients you've worked with, or even if you have a personal story that you'd like to share around how understanding maybe your chart or a piece of your chart really shifted something.
Yeah. Yeah, I have lots of stories. So first, what I want to say is, like, even though I mainly work with conscious leaders, and usually they come to me because they want to scale their business with ease, or want to start their business and be visible in a way that's aligned. So what we usually end up working on is relationship stuff, because we're holding back or not having the success we want because of usually some kind of that the conditioning we experience and the beliefs we take on. We don't believe in ourselves, right? We're trying to fit in and please everybody, all these things. So then with human design, so many of my clients, it's all about, and this has also been a lot my story because I'm highly empathic. So I have, like, when you look at the human design chart, the solar plexus center, this is the center at the right, which is usually brown. It's cut in and brown, or it's white, and then that means it's undefined. So mine is completely open, which means that I'm so empathic, I can actually take on other people's emotions, and that can be quite painful. When I learned that about myself, I finally understood that one of the reasons I was holding back from speaking my truth and setting boundaries, because I did not want to upset anybody. Because when emotions then were coming up, I would feel them 10 times stronger or so. So I was like, just by default, and not trying to feel the uncomfortable stuff, I was totally people pleasing, right? Which is a total success blocker. So that has helped me personally tremendously, also in my relationship, because my partner, for example, has 2 of the very big waves. So he can be all of a sudden be very melancholic and low in a wave. And I used to take this person. I was like, what did I do wrong? Why doesn't he want to talk to me? And I could amplify this, and it was painful, and there can be a relationship deal breaker. But when I learned about human design, I was like, oh wow, he has these waves, and he actually is normal for him. It has nothing to do with me. And I feel it, and I amplified. Of course I feel this way. And now it has shifted so much for me, like 180 degrees, because I no longer take it personal. I'm like, oh, he's in his high. When he's in his high, he's like super funny and very like, it's like, yeah, he's up in his wave. And then actually what happens sometimes, it totally crashes down. And then, like, there are several days sometimes where he's very like, he doesn't want to talk much and he's very like withdrawn or in a more melancholic state. But it's also, I think I have helped him also a little bit to understand that that's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with him, because people that have anxiety, they are really, really big on like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And often people think and of course, there is also sometimes that's something you want to get checked with a psychologist.
Of course, sure.
People often misdiagnose themselves as bipolar
Mm.
because they are misunderstand or think there's something wrong with these emotional waves. And the fact is that around 50% of humans have that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's normal to feel emotionally high and emotionally low. It's just the problem occurs when we resist that and make it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So that is huge.
Yeah.
That in itself, for myself, and then now also with the clients I work with, I mean, I've helped clients get out of like toxic relationship dynamics. I help them a lot to speak their truth and set boundaries and stop the people pleasing. That's one of the biggest things we work on, and human design helps tremendously with that.
Yeah, that's such a powerful example, because what I also heard in there was when you mentioned the high, you said, oh, he's on that wave. So it's sort of like being a little bit neutral with yourself. It's not like, oh, I'm causing that high or I'm causing that low, right?
Yeah.
Like we can depersonalize it and really let the person be who they are and allow us to be who we are. And we can engage in that way instead of having one person's behavior be indicative of something we've done or not done or something. And that's just how so many problems occur.
Yeah, because we make it mean something about us, right? Either like, oh, why is he so goofy and funny right now? Like, and I was almost a little bit triggered by it. And now it's just like, just beautiful to see. It's just letting that part out of him, because that's what's happening. And when it's in that kind of low melancholic, which is actually a beautiful creative energy when you're not making that thing, I can be more gentle and loving with him, and also with myself, because I used to be like, what did I do wrong? What did I say something bad? Does he still like me? Like, yeah. And if this is something that is always going to be there because that's the nature of who we are, then yeah, that really helps a lot. But I have really had people burst out in tears of relief. Because if you spend a lifetime, decades of wondering what's wrong with you, and also many people do take medications. I get really, like I'm saying, right? You also want to, like, we are not doctors or anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You also want to get checked.
See the right professionals, 100%.
Yeah, and medications have their place, but I do believe that many people that just diagnose themselves very quickly, put themselves in a box, and so that is one of the most fulfilling things with human design, that you can so fundamentally change a person's life. It's just like puts me still in awe.
As you were saying that, it felt just, especially towards the end, like it's so empowering, right, to know that about ourselves. And if we are curious about some of our tendencies or the ways we even think about things, we can use these tools and practices to help us understand more about ourselves and then recognize, oh, okay, this is sort of a characteristic of this type, let's say, in human design, or this profile number, or XYZ. And I think it can really, offer a lot of permission for us to then lean into being ourselves in that relationship instead of maybe trying to change the way we're showing up, because we can sense, as people who are sensitive or empathic, that like, oh, this other person is behaving this way and they might be behaving that way for some completely different reason. So there's just so much there in terms of leaning into our authentic selves. And I'm wondering, if someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds nice, but like, how do you actually, in the moment, start to recognize some of this stuff? I know you've talked about this deconditioning process when we've talked about human design before, and I don't know if that's like a process that sits side by side or if that's part of human design. Would you share about that a little bit?
Yeah, so in my particular case, which was quite beautiful, before I even knew about human design, I was doing the deconditioning work, which is like really releasing the emotions that we suppress. So really getting into the body. And I was doing that for years. And that was huge for me also. That was the first thing, was like, wow, finally, like, because I finally faced my fears. I finally allowed myself to cry and not be ashamed,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and express my fears and feel it in my body, because there was, we go through stuff in life.
Mm-hmm.
And then with human design on top of it, it's like the deconditioning work is that, like, really, really feeling all that we are feeling and not suppressing it anymore, and releasing a lot what we have suppressed for decades. And then human design is just like this shortcut tool that also helps us to realize that some of the things we're trying to work on, we don't really have to work on at all, because they're normal, right? If we
Okay.
have emotional authority, like, there's nothing to fix. Like, we don't want
Yeah.
to make the emotional low go away or something
Yes.
like that, right?
Right,
It's just
right,
like
right.
move through that. And it's really, for me, the combination of those. And it's really the work that you are doing as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The somatics, because that together with human design is just like, because you do it very targeted.
Mm-hmm.
And you also, on top of it, when you understand certain things about yourself, you have, first of all, so much more compassion for yourself. It's like
Mm-hmm.
a sense of relief that I was describing earlier.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's normal, and this is why I feel this way. And I started to be more confident to also express it. Also, because in a relationship, what has been a game changer for me, because I'm so empathic and I can feel so much from others and amplify it. And sometimes I cannot even explain what I'm feeling. Partner
Mm-hmm.
sometimes he asks like, what's happening? I can feel like something is off. And I'm like, yes, I don't even know what it is. Give me some time to process right now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the biggest, or the most healthy thing I find in relationship is when we can then be very vulnerable and just let it be okay that I want to cry. And I don't even
Mm-hmm.
know why.
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah, not make it always mean about the other person.
Right.
Instead of just like, this is how I feel, I just got really triggered.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, it's another healing opportunity for us in the relationship, right? So yeah, I don't know if I went off topic here a little bit, but it's really that combination of like understanding your human design was totally normal for you, and then having that knowledge about the deconditioning and the how our emotions are actually our access point to release these stories we have about ourselves that are not serving us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that sometimes people, in any kind of relationship, when they have that moment of like disagreement or something, like they might feel like that trigger or that intense, like visceral feeling. And so often, as you're saying, we tend to maybe push that aside or just try to get through that quickly. And I was just speaking to somebody earlier today around, sometimes we move so fast through that because we don't maybe realize we're avoiding, but we're avoiding this like really uncomfortable or maybe painful feeling and just trying to get to something different. But what I hear with the deconditioning, which sounds, just similar with the somatic world, is like really slowing everything down and allowing yourself to feel
Mm-hmm.
what's coming up. And that can be very scary,
Oh,
certainly, because we don't know where it's going to take us. And I'm thinking also if we are a person with those waves, we might have felt those lower emotional experiences before, and we start to sort of feel this intense feeling coming on. We don't want to go there because it can be really hard. Then it's like, well, what if I get stuck in this place and I can't get myself out? And that can be very difficult.
and that's why so many people, right? We want to avoid feeling uncomfortable, and then we end up doing emotional eating or numbing our feelings
Mm,
that are
absolutely.
addictive, whatever behaviors can come up with. That's over consuming social media, distractions. There's so many things, right? Shopping.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, and of course, it also all has an impact on relationship dynamics.
Absolutely.
So being able to really express how you feel and your emotions in a relationship in a very safe and loving way with your partner, I feel like that's probably the biggest relationship secret for success, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and on that note, as you said that, if someone is listening and they want that, but for whatever reason the dynamic is just not there, it just doesn't quite feel that way. Do you have any suggestions like through the the lens of human design or some of the other work you do of how can someone maybe sit with that or work with that a little bit on their own before maybe they have an opportunity to work through that or be able to say something like that with their partner.
Yeah, so anything in relationship, right? As we always like often project our things onto our partner and want to like, oh, they need to work on stuff and then I'm okay. But
yeah.
always starts with you. So also with human design, because you may start to be interested in it and discover it for yourself. Like, don't do the mistake and oh, I need my partner to do it and we need to do it together or something like that. It may be that they are interested and they're really drawn to, and people can also do relationship reading. Now, I can also do a relationship reading, for example, just with you, and we talk about your partner, but not for you to go to your partner and tell them you need to do this and fix this, and because you have to be open to humanism. Like I said in the beginning, like if this resonates with you, some people they don't want to hear about it, and that's okay. But understand yourself first better. The biggest gift you can give your relationship is to love yourself more. And your partner will start to notice that, because you start to radiate more when you are more compassionate with yourself. Like your partner will start to shift as well. So the more you go into your own human design and understand yourself better, do the inner work, the somatics with you or the conditioning that I provide, or there's so many different modalities out there that will create the shift. And of course, there are couples out there, they're both interested in it. And but also, of course, you can also, if you want, and let's say you have a session with me and I'm always open, we can look at your partner's chart and I can explain you some things about your partner. And so many have done it often with clients because they had some relationship like friction things happening. And I looked at the partner's chart and they were like, oh, wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
We get into this judging and like, yeah, they're doing this and that doesn't work for me. And when I understand how they naturally are, what their authentic self is that they're meant to be, that kind of jaw drop moments appear and they're like, oh, wow. Because oftentimes we try our partner to be who we want them to be, but not who they really are. And that can never be a successful, healthy relationship.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so much even subtle control that can happen, right? Because I think ultimately, if we, when I view this through this compassionate lens of all of us want to feel safe, we want to feel secure, we want to have some level of control so we know the next thing, like we can, without realizing it, put that on somebody else to be the provider of that and show up in a certain way so that we can feel a certain way. And so really understanding your own chart, but then even understanding the small pieces of somebody else's can allow us then to let go of some of that.
Yeah.
Control.
And that is really just for you to understand your partner better, not for you to go to your partner and tell them how they should be behaving, because that is their human design chart. That's going to be repelling, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Whenever there is a dynamic of control, even if it's subtle, I always say, well, there's probably going to be some pushback somewhere in there. We might not always be in that moment, but something is going to be off. Yeah. Appreciate your sharing that. That's wonderful. Gosh, is there anything else that's, that feels really important to share about like human design and relationships?
And I have to say, it's such an incredible tool that can change your life. I mean, starting with your relationships and all other areas of your life, so dramatically, amazingly, magically, all the things that, if it's one of those things where you're like, oh, it's too good to be true, but human design, you're open to that. It's and it's actually, well, that's one thing that I want to say, since we talk about relationships. So children, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm a mom, for example, and we often, I think, especially as parents, we can project our own stuff on our kids, and we're like, oh, the kid needs to fix this, and the kids have a problem. And I'll tell you something, like we parents have to do the work. And ultimately, actually, human design is actually meant for the children. But like we need to understand ourselves first. And if we start also like from an early age on, like learn our kids better, we can be better parents, and we can really, because we often have these expectations, right? Like, how a kid should behave and be active, and
Mm-hmm.
what they should learn in school or go to college for. And human design is just a game changer with that. And we can avoid so much like struggle,
Mm-hmm.
our parenting, the upbringing of our children, like for their future relationships, for their
Mm-hmm.
career path, when
Yeah.
we know the human design. So that's why it's a huge gift. You can not only give to yourself, but all the future generations, um, because I really imagine or envision a world where even like in the educational system, the schools, even kindergartens, if human design is something that is accepted there, as just a guidance tool. And it's not like, because people often like, they're like, well, it's like, with the religion sometimes it's for me, it's not like that at all. It's so like, and it's of course the way how you teach it, but it's so freeing and open, and really it's just this tool to accept and love yourself more, and learn to trust yourself. If I want to make it very, very simple, it's not here to put you in a box. There may be people out there that teach it in a way that's putting you in a box. If you feel this way, then I would say leave it.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it
Mm-hmm.
that make you feel like getting out of the box, and give yourself permission to be more free and expand and be the full expression of who you are also for your kids. So that's really what human design is really meant to be for.
Yeah, no, but thank you for sharing that piece about the children and the parents. And yeah, I think just with any relationship, you want the best for, especially, right? If you're a parent, you want the best for your kids, and you might have this idea of what that looks like. And it may not be for them, or the method that you're imparting may not be for them. Ultimately, maybe they want something similar, but what I hear also, and what I've understood with human design, is everybody gets there in their own way. And so if we can understand what that way is for the little people in our lives, whether you're an auntie or your parent or your teacher, whoever you are, just understanding that for them can help you guide them so
Yeah.
that they will meet that full potential and be happy and healthy and all of those things that we
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
It's a tool of compassion. And the other final thing I want to say, because I was saying, I think earlier, because we're both manifesting generators and we tend to move really fast.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely also was always that, but human design also really helped me actually to slow down.
Mm.
That's why now everything in my life has more becoming about actually consciously slowing down. And I do it also with my clients and my own podcast, right?
Mm-hmm. Slowing
So
down. Yes.
actually from that place, you then actually create these quantum leaps and big shifts, and everything in the human design chart, the more I have been learning it and analyzing everything, like
Mm-hmm.
actually the big message of human design as well is slow down.
Mm. Yeah, I really believe that with the somatic work too, is if we can create that internal sense of safety to be able to slow down, kind of feel through, it really massively changes the expression of your nervous system, certainly, right? Because we're not in this place of pushing through it or repressing things or pushing things down. But if we can relax into it, you can almost feel this exhale in your body,
Yeah.
when we give ourselves the permission to do it. So on that note, my final question is, what is one suggestion, tool, or practice you'd offer to my listeners who are looking to transform their relationship?
Yeah. So I think even though we talk about human design here, it's to be really compassionate with yourself when it comes to emotions, because
Mm-hmm.
my favorite saying of all time is like, what you resist persists,
Mm-hmm.
and what you accept has the capacity to change. So when we can stop making meaning about those, what we label negative emotions, but just be,
Mm-hmm.
and also stop judging yourself when you have like a blah day, right? Because it's actually the only thing that is bad about it is that we're judging ourselves, nothing else. And the more we can just be with it, and also it's maybe just life slowing you down right now, and to withdraw and not be out there and do all the things, right? And maybe be quiet, and because out of that, when we can just be it and feel the feelings that are rising for us, that's where the big breakthroughs come, and the
Mm-hmm.
magic rises, and synchronicities come, and the unexpected and the magical happens. And so stop suppressing how you really feel.
Mm-hmm.
Give yourself permission to feel it all and be honest with yourself and others. That will really transform your relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your wise words. And for those who would like to connect with you, what is the best way they can do that?
Yeah, so we are over at the Aligned Living Academy, where my business partner Miranda and I were doing all the beautiful things.
Mm-hmm.
And certification. We have now also more programs for the human design types. You can also reach, on my personal website, analenafuchs.com. I also have a lot of courses by now that I've recorded with the deconditioning.
Mm-hmm.
I have some also the mini human design beginners one-on-one free courses there. On Instagram, I have lots of resources. You can probably share it in the show notes.
I will definitely do that.
They have lots and lots of content about human design, which can be really helpful. I have a podcast myself, The Art of Slowing Down to Quantum Leap. I talk a lot about human design there and slowing down and quantum leaping. So I have lots of conversations more into depth about certain also human design types that you may find on there. So that's also a beautiful way to hang out with me more. And yeah, so I think that's and I do work one-on-one with people. That's like by application only, but some people that want to go on a really deep transformational journey with. So yeah, and you can send me a private message on Instagram or email me. That bloom@analenafuchs.com is my email. And I'm happy to connect,
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your time and your wisdom. And it's always such a pleasure to talk to you.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode of the Transform Your Relationship podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts to help more people find us so they can transform their relationships too. As a thank you, every month, we'll pick one winner to receive a free 45-minute one-on-one somatic coaching session with me to explore and gain clarity around a relationship challenge. And if you know somebody who could benefit from listening to the show, then please do share and help me reach more highly sensitive women who want to experience richer, more connected relationships.